Hello everyone. Today we'll be talking about an important aspect of this course, which is how we can actually use Excel for data analysis and dashboard creation. And the Excel tool we'll be using for data analysis and dashboard creation is called the pivot table. The pivot table. Now, the learning outcomes of this lecture are the following. At the end of this lecture, every participant should be able to understand what a pivot table is. Every participant should be able to understand the components of a pivot table, and they should also be able to demonstrate how a pivot table could be used for data analysis and dashboard creation. Now, this at the end of the day, this is the kind of dashboard we want to use our pivot table in Excel to create. We'll be using a car sales data set. I'll be creating this kind of dashboard from her car sales data set. The idea is to understand how we can carry out data analysis and dashboard creation with a simple data set. Then we'll progress to how we can work on large data sets. Now let me illustrate how this dashboard works. Now we've used the make or the manufacturer of the cars to filter these data sets. For instance, if the manufacturer clicks Ford, then the car model per millage will be displayed. The number of cars per color and model will be displayed. The cost of the car per model will be displayed, and the total millage of the car per model will also be displayed. Now, if you click Chevrolet, this will be displayed. If you click Dodge, the respective characteristics will be displayed. If you click Honda, the respective characteristics will be displayed. If you click Nissan, the respective characteristics will be displayed. If you click Toyota, the respective characteristics of the car will be displayed. Now, I used Excel to create this. Now I will illustrate how we can use Excel to come up with a simple dashboard like this. Now let's go through the lecture notes. A pivot table is a functionality in Excel which helps you to organize and analyze your data. If you want to do data analysis in Excel, we always use pivot table for our data analysis. Pivot table helps you to structure and organize your data so that you can understand large data sets. Now, to use a pivot table, your data set must be in a tabular format. Your data set must be in a tabular format. Now, what are the components of a pivot table? Every pivot table has six major components. Every pivot table has six major components. Every pivot table has a column. Every pivot table has a row. Every pivot table has a filter. Every pivot table has a value section. Every pivot table has a field section. And every pivot table has a field layout section. I believe you already know what a column is. Columns are the vertical tabular data that has a unique header on the top. The header describes the data available in a particular column. A pivot table also makes use of rows. We already know what a row is. Rows are what? Horizontal data. Now, data in the same row are related. Data in the same row are related. Now, data in the same row are related. Data in a row are called record, while data in a column are called fields. Now, our pivot table also makes use of filters. Filters are used to select the group of data you want to see. You know, you are dealing with a large data set. So you use filter to determine the group of data you want to see. Every pivot table also makes use of what we call values. Values define how you present your data, how you present your data. Now you can decide to summarize your data, or you may decide to show your values. Now let's see the difference between summarizing or showing your values. Now you can decide that the data you have in a particular column, you want to use sum to summarize it. That is, you want to provide a summation of all the data you have in a particular column. And you could also be interested in finding the number of data you have in a particular column. That is when we say you want to count the number of data you have in a particular column. You could also be interested in finding the average of the data you have in a particular column, or perhaps you are interested in finding the maximum value that you have in a particular column, or the minimum value that you have in a particular column. All these things can be achieved in the summarized value field setting of your pivot table. Now, you can also decide to show your values by performing some calculations on your value. It will be that you are only interested in knowing the percentage of the grand total. You only want to display the percentage of the grand total, or you want to display the percentage of the column data, or perhaps you want to display the percentage of the row data, or perhaps you want to display the percentage of the parents row total, or the percentage of the parents column data. So these are the two ways you can present your data. You can decide to summarize your data, or you can decide to show your values. Now, the next component of a pivot table is the field. Fields are used to select the group of data you want to see. Fields are used to select the group of data you want to see. We also have the field layout. The field layout gives you an overview of the data you have in your pivot table. That is an overview of the data you have in your filter section, overview of the data you have in your column, overview of the data you've selected in your rows, or overview of the data you've selected in your value fields. Now let's see how the pivot field window looks like. Now this is an example of how the pivot field table looks like. Now it's telling me that I've selected the manufacturer, that is the make of the car. I've also selected the mileage of the car. And also in my different fields, I have what? The filter section, that is the column you want to use to select the data you want to see. And we also have the column section. We also have the row section. We also have the what? The values section. Now, if you want to insert a pivot table, you need to do the following steps. You click any single cell inside your data set, then you go to the insert table in the tables group, then you click a pivot table. Now let me demonstrate how to do this. Now this data set we want to use. Anytime I want to work on a data set like this, I've advised us that it's advisable that we create a working sheet. So let me name this as what? The raw sheet. This is the raw sheet. Now let me create a copy of this. Create a copy, move to end. Okay. So now I'll call this what? My working sheet. That is, this is the sheet I'll be working with. So now if I want to insert a pivot table, I must first ensure that my data set is in a tabular format, and of course my data set must have been cleaned. So I'll click any cell in the table, then I'll go to insert, then I'll select pivot table. Immediately I click pivot table, it will bring out this window. I will tell me the range of my table. You will see that it has highlighted all the you can see that it has highlighted my table. Then where do I want the pivot table to be created? Is it in this existing worksheet, or I want it to be created in a new worksheet? It's always advisable that we create a pivot table in a new worksheet. Whenever I'm working, I always ensure that all my pivot tables are in a single worksheet. So I want a pivot table to be created on a new worksheet. So this is where my pivot table will be created. I can rename this and call it pivot table. Okay, let me rearrange this. So this is my working sheet, and this is where my pivot table will be. Immediately I click this pivot table cell, the pivot table fields will be highlighted. Now these are my pivot table fields. Then any data, any section of my data that I want to analyze, or any section of my data that I want to visualize will now be selected. So let's assume that I'm interested in seeing the model. I want to carry out an analysis using the model of the car, or perhaps I want to carry out a comparison using the model of the car against the price or cost of the car. I will select any field, any column I want to use here. The information I have here are the words, are the column header. The information I have there are the column header. You can see from my data set, we have the make column header, we have the model column, we have the color column, we have the mileage, we have the price, we have the cost. So I'm interested in visualizing the relationship that exists between the model of the car against the price and cost of the car. Now take a look at this. Immediately I select any column, you can see Excel has automatically placed it in the rows section. So now if I select price, it has already placed it in the values section. The reason why it has done this was because the price column contains numeric values. It contains numbers, and model contains what? Textual information. So now if I click cost, you can see cost also contains what? Numbers. And it is also placed in column. So you see that sum of cost have been placed there, then the sum of price have been placed there. This is what I discussed under visualizing our values. Do you want to visualize your values by summarizing it, or you want to visualize your values by... Now let's take a look at this. I can come in and click the value field settings. So now, do I want to visualize my value by summarizing it, or I want to show my values? Now I've clicked summarize my values by what? Summing it. So now let me uncheck this and still tell us something. We do call this drag area. The pivot table fields, we also do call it the drag area, in the sense that instead of me allowing Excel to automatically place respective column where they're supposed to be, you can see it has placed make a model in the row section. I can actually drag the column header to the section I like. You can see you press and hold, then you place them where you want them to be. You can press and hold, then you place them where you want them to be. So I'm interested in seeing the relationship that exists between the model of the car against the price and cost of the car. So let me also drag this into the values section. So you can see this is now my pivot table. This is now my pivot table that is showing me what? The relationship between the model of the car against what? The price and cost of the car. Now, I can decide to change this row header and call it model. Model. I can even call it car model. Car model. Now, this is the car model. This is the car model. Now, this is the car model. I'm also interested in visualizing more relationship between my data. So I can still copy this, paste it in another cell, and still change the variables. Now I've established the relationship between the model and price and cost of the car. Now let's say I'm still interested in seeing the relationship between the mileage. I'm still interested in seeing the relationship between the mileage. Now between the mileage of the car against what? The price and cost of the car. So I'm still interested in knowing the relationship between the price and cost of the car against the model of the car. I'm interested in knowing the relationship between the car mileage. So I'll change this to what? The mileage of the car. Mileage. So I'm interested in knowing the relationship between the mileage of the car against the price and cost of the car. Now, this is where data analysis comes in. Data analysis is all about drawing insights, extracting uncovering hidden patterns or trends from our data. That's what data analysis is. So organizations may give us the raw data. It is now left to us to discover hidden patterns and trends and also extract meaningful insights that will be useful for organization. Meaningful insight that organizations can use to make informed decisions about how to achieve their goals in their organization. So now I'm still interested in drawing some other insights from my data. So let me copy this, come to another section, your data set. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want all my pivot table to be in the same Excel sheet. So now I will come in. What else am I interested in? I'm interested in extracting information about the color of the car. So I'm interested in knowing the relationship between the color of the car and the mileage of the car. Okay, what other insights am I interested in? So now let me change this to color. Perhaps I shouldn't have changed the name of the header. Okay, now this is also color. Okay, so I'm interested in knowing the relationship between the color and the mileage and the model. So now let me change this to model and the mileage. Car model. So now I'm interested in knowing the relationship between the car model and the car price and also the car cost. I'm also interested in knowing the relationship between the car mileage and the price of the car and the cost of the car. I'm also interested in knowing the relationship between the car color and the mileage of the car. I'm also interested in knowing the relationship between the car model and also the mileage of the car. So these are the different pivot tables I've generated from my data sets. And what do I want to use the pivot table for? I want to use the pivot table for data analysis to know the relationship that exists between different columns in my data set. So after I've identified all the pivot table I need, then I can go a step further to generate a chart from this pivot table. Now, to generate the chart, highlight any pivot table you are interested in, then come to this pivot table analyze section. Click the pivot table analyze section, then you go to pivot chart. Then now you can see this is a chart. I can select this chart. Okay. So I can select this pivot table, go to pivot table analyze, pivot charts. Okay, I can still select this chart. Now I can select any chart I want. I'll still get to the section where I can now change my charts. Okay, pivot table analyze, pivot charts. Okay, pivot table analyze, pivot charts. Okay, Control Z. So these are the charts I've extracted from my table. So now you can see these are the charts I've highlighted from my table. So now let me create an additional sheet and call it my dashboard sheet. My dashboard. So now this is my dashboard sheet. So I'll come to my pivot table and copy all the charts I've generated. And copy all the charts I've generated. Okay, copy this, come here. So I've pasted that. Okay, select this, select this. To see, come to my dashboard, paste them in. Okay, now I cannot decide to arrange my data, my charts the way I want it. So let's say I want this to be here. I want this to be here. I want this to be here. Okay, I want this to be here. So now you can see that my charts did not align. Now I can press Control, click the chart I want to align. Then I'll come to Shape Format, Align. Then I'll say I want to align it right. You can see it has aligned right. So I can click both of these two. I'll come to Shape Format, Align. Then I'll click Align Right as well. So you can see I've aligned my charts. Okay, there's a gap here. I can manually sort that out. Okay, so now these are my charts. So there are some things we may want to do on our charts. Let's come to this. Now, my chart has axis. I can decide to remove the axis, but axes are important because they give us more information about the data we have in our chart. So I'll retain axis. Let me check. I'll retain axis, both vertical and horizontal axis. Okay, axis titles. Am I interested in the axis titles? I think yes, I should be interested. So I'll come here, I'll press the assign the axis title, car models. Now, car models. Okay, this will be what? Let me use amount because this is in naira. So I can put amount in dollars. Amount in dollars. Okay, so what else do I want? Let me still come here. Am I interested in adding a chart title? Chart title is important. Then I'll say car models. Against price and cost. Okay, what else do I need to add? If I'm interested in adding the data table, I can add data table, but you can see adding the data table makes the charts to be cumbersome. So I can remove this. So am I interested in seeing the grid lines? I think grid lines are important. It will help us know uh, where each bar is. Okay, am I interested in keeping the legend? I think legends too is important. Trend lines, am I interested? No. Okay, if I want to change the style of the chart, I can come here, I'll click this place, chart styles. Then, but now we should be careful of our choice of color. So it's better for us to leave it plain and simple. So I can leave it this way. Now let's repeat the same thing for the second chart. Okay, let's click the chart. Now we can add the axis titles. These are the mileage of the car. Okay. These are the car prices. Amount. Let's say amount. Amount in dollars. Okay, what else do we want to add? Let's come here. I want okay, chart title. Okay, what else do we want to add? Should we add data table? No, we can't add data table. Trend line. Should we add trend line? No. Okay, I think this is okay for this. So we can go to the next. Title. These are what the car models. Car models. Okay, we'll double click this. These are the words. Mileage. Okay, let's comment chat title. Car mileage per model. Okay, let's come here. What else can we add? Data labels, no. Data table, no. Error bars, no. Grid lines. Okay, grid line is good. The legend. Okay, the legend. No, we don't need legend for this. Okay, we can include the legend. So we are done with that. Okay, I've removed the grid line. Let me add the grid line. I'll come in. I will add the grid line. Okay, here. Let me add the title. This is the words. Car mileage. Car mileage per color. What else do I want to add? Data table. Now I can add the data table. The data table is not too much. Okay, the axis title. Let me edit the axis title. Car colors. Okay, this car mileage. Car mileage. Okay. So now let me see. Now I can change the design of the charts. I can change the charts. Okay. Will a line chart be okay? I think a line chart is good for this. Okay. Change chart type. Will a pie chart is not always good for visualization of this kind of data. Now you can test it against all types of charts. Let me go for this. I think this is okay. Okay, if I'm interested in changing the color, I come here, blah blah blah, change the colors. If I'm interested in this, now this is not good. Okay, let me remove the data labels. This chart is not good. Okay, let me revert back to the old one. What else do I need to change? Okay, so now I believe my chart is okay. So the next thing I need to add is to add a filter. Now, I can now select the car manufacturer to filter the contents of this chart. So I'll click any of the charts, then I will come to, okay, pivot charts analyze, then I will select insert slicer. You click the make, then you click OK. So now, what I want to achieve with this is, if you want to know the information If you want to know all this information about a particular maker of a car, you can click it. Chevrolet, Dodge, Ford, Honda, Nissan, Toyota. So you can now see that this slicer is only working for this chart. So if I want this slicer to work for the remaining charts, I'll right click on the chart, then I will come to report connections. Then I will select each pivot table. Then I will click OK. So with this, if I click any make of the car, the corresponding attributes will be displayed on my chart. Okay. So now, the next thing I can now do, I can decide to remove the grid lines. I selected here, come to view, remove grid lines. Okay, before I remove grid lines, let me add the title of my dashboard. Home, Media Center, Car Sales Dashboard. Okay, now this is black Car Sales Dashboard. Let me Control Z. I've selected. Okay. So I'll have to shift this downward a little bit. Let me view the grid lines. Okay, shouldn't affect it. Yeah. Okay, so now I can decide to add a color to this. I decide to change the font type to white. Okay, black is good. Now I can remove the grid line. I'll come here, view, remove grid line, and I will add color to the background. Okay, so I can come here and let this text color be white. So now this is my dashboard. Now, the most important aspect of this course is the data analysis task. It is the data analysis task that it is during the data analysis task that we extract hidden insights, trends, and patterns from our data set. Now, imagine this data set that we just worked on. Now, imagine the volume of insights I've extracted from that data set using AI tools. Now imagine from the data set that I can come up with a manufacturer analysis that will determine the distribution of cars among different manufacturers. I can identify the top manufacturers by the number of cars listed. I can analyze the average price and cost of cars for each manufacturer. I can also come up with a model analysis that determines which car models are most commonly listed in data sets. I can also identify the highest priced car and the lowest priced model. I can also analyze the relationship between mileage, price, and cost for each model during my model analysis. Imagine I can still carry out a mileage analysis where I will calculate the average mileage of the cars in the data set. I can also identify outliers with exceptionally high or low mileage. I can also analyze how mileage correlates with price and cost. I can still carry out price and cost analysis, where I will calculate the average price and cost of cars in the data set. I can determine the price and cost distribution using histograms or box plots. I can also analyze the relationship between price and cost to understand profit margins. Now imagine all this kind of analysis that I can extract from that small data sets. Humanly speaking, it could be difficult for me to figure out all this analysis on my own. But with the help of AI tools, I've become a superhuman. That's the reason why for us to be a perfect data analyst in this 21st century, that is called AI era. We need to know how to use these AI tools to maximize our data analysis tasks. That's the reason why in the next lecture, what we'll be focusing on is how we can use these AI tools for our data analysis tasks. There are certain AI tools that you can upload your whole data set into them and they will generate insights from the data set, and they will also create charts for you. There are some AI tools we can also use to create dashboard from our data sets. These are the things we'll explore in the next video. Thank you.